Ready or not, Ohio reopens. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Jeremy Pelzer, State House reporter for Cleveland.com, and Julie Carr-Smythe, State House correspondent for the Associated Press. Welcome to Columbus on a Record. We're still zooming at you from Ohio State University's Fawcett Center. We hope to get back to normal at some point, but by the end of May, much of Ohio will be open for business, at least somewhat. Governor DeWine this week announced where and or when and how hair salons and restaurants and bars will reopen. Hair and nail salons can reopen for business on May 15th. Also, restaurants can open their outdoor patios on May 15th. They can open their in-dining rooms on May 21st. All of these businesses will have to satisfy strict sanitary concerns and keep customers 6 feet apart.
This is a gamble. This is a new part of the journey. We're on a road that's never been traveled before, certainly never been traveled before in Ohio. It is a road that has danger signs on it, and we need to fully understand that.
DeWine stressed that everyone must continue to physically distance, and he really strongly urges everyone wear a mask. Retail stores will open this coming week. Still no word on when gyms will reopen or daycare centers, although Governor DeWine said he'll have an announcement about that on Monday. As of Friday, Ohio has 23,000 total cases of coronavirus, but that number, of course, is limited based on testing. 4,200 people have been hospitalized since the start of the pandemic. 1,306 people have now died from COVID-19. Julie Carr-Smythe, back to the reopening. We're not at the testing that we need. The federal government recommends that we should have. The number of cases continues to rise. The number of deaths continues to rise. Hospitalizations are coming down, but the governor is full speed ahead on these partial reopening.
Right. And I think that, what they seem to be looking at is a 21-day average that was higher than each individual day now. So as we look at the trend, it's flattening in that way, but you're absolutely right. I mean, even the White House had set some goals. AP reported this week on what the state was supposed to be looking at in terms of a 14-day downward trend that we're just not seeing.
Jeremy, the governor admitted it's a gamble. Is it worth the gamble?
It's a balancing act. It's whatever metaphor you want to use. It's weighing the harm, the economic harm being done against the safety and health of Ohioans. And DeWine has been the first to admit that, there's a lot of risk here, and it's clearly a risk that he and other state officials are willing to take.
He's putting a lot of faith, am I wrong, in folks to police themselves, where if you're vulnerable, you'll stay home. If you're living with somebody who's vulnerable, you'll stay home or go out or not go to a restaurant, not go to the shopping mall.
That's right, Mike. And that has been the advice that he's giving is, use your best judgment. Essentially, they're testing this in some ways. This is a very, tiptoeing into this with early restrictions, for example, on restaurants that they're going to try doing it outside for a few days before they open indoor areas. They're telling people if they're going to their hair salon, everybody has to wear a mask and, or be safe and be prudent. But at the same time, obviously, he's been under a lot of pressure to get the economy open again. We've seen these protests downtown and all over the country, really, that there's intense pressure. We've seen the worst unemployment numbers since they've been recording numbers.
Since the Depression, it's worse than the Depression in some ways. Jeremy, we have a feeling of what retail establishments are going to look like, because a lot of stores have been open. We see those, that every 6 feet, please wait here when you're in line to check out at the grocery store or at the warehouse store or some big department stores. So we have an idea what retail is going to look like with the plexiglass in front of the cashiers. Going to a restaurant's going to be different. Any idea what that's going to look like?
It's going to be very different, and it's going to really vary by restaurant. You're going to have restaurants where face masks are everywhere. You're going to have restaurants where face masks aren't. I just went to a local restaurant in my neighborhood and talked to the owner. He was talking about how he doesn't want to be the policeman, and so he's not going to be reopening right away. He wants to stay closed because he doesn't want to constantly walk around his restaurant telling people to put on their masks or stay 6 feet apart. So it's really wildly going to vary by retail establishment. And this has been kind of the governor's MO from the beginning, which has been, hey, you guys should do this on your own. But if it doesn't happen, we're going to lay down the hammer. And so he's giving people a shot to do this on their own.
Julie, how do you, it was hard enough to enforce the essential businesses. How do you enforce the hundreds and hundreds, thousands of restaurants and bars and little eateries that are going to be opening up on May 21st?
It could go very smoothly if people want to cooperate, if people begin to want to go their own way and they insist on coming in without a mask, for example, or they don't want to stay 6 feet apart, or they don't want to bring in a group that's 10 people or under. There could be chaos. It really just depends on individuals, and I think that's why the governor is using his bully pulpit as he did on Thursday to try to say, please, we know that some of your groups don't feel as if you're as impacted. For example, students down at Ohio State or people in rural areas. But please just remember that it's not about you. It's about everybody.
Yeah, because you catch it, you pass it on to somebody in your house, your grandmother, your parent, elderly neighbor next door. If you meet out walking the dog or walking down the sidewalk, that's how this stuff spreads. I mean, it's a virus. You can't see it. We know that office buildings were able to be open this week. Same with all manufacturing folks that were closed down, factories that were closed down, any distribution centers that were closed down during the stay-at-home order, construction sites. They all reopened on Monday. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't see a whole lot more people on the road. I've been driving it to work through this whole thing, but I didn't see a whole lot of people on the road on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning.
No, I mean, I actually don't go downtown that much myself. I work from here at my home, but I did see a few more people in the parking garages when I was down for the briefing. But I think that the emphasis is on if you can work from home, you or your employees can work from home, they should continue to try to do so as many people as possible. And I think that is really going to be a fundamental culture shift for us in all kinds of ways. I know groups that I participate in are surveying people now about whether going forward, do people like this? Do people like the Zoom life in some ways, and will they adhere to that after the virus has lifted?
Do you think it lasts? I mean, we have such short memories. This will pass eventually. We'll have a vaccine, we'll become immune, and we'll move on to the next crisis, the next controversy. Jeremy, do you think it lasts and people will stay home permanently?
I think you'll have people do everything, react the exact same way they have been reacting. Some people will totally take precautions. Some people will say, you can't tell me what to do. And some people will have long memories. Some people will have very, very short memories. And I think that if in any crisis, it's just you have this kind of very shaky consensus about what people should do, but then there's a very vocal minority of people who are trying to go their own way about it.
Yeah. A lot of people compare this to 9/11. I think the difference is 9/11 was so visible, even though it was far fewer people that died on 9/11 than have died so far from coronavirus. But it was so visible. We all saw it happening. This is just invisible. And many of us, I don't know anybody who's had COVID-19 personally. I don't know if you folks have, but it doesn't really, unless it affects you, it's still very invisible, literally.
Right. I mean, I'm definitely just watching through the news reports. For example, AP's done some incredible reporting of what's hitting the New York City area. And I've seen friends on Facebook, folks I knew in high school or college who say they got it, or and a number of people whose parents have died. Obviously, a lot of people in nursing homes are quite worried about it. It's hitting more than we know, but it's definitely hitting unequally, and it's hitting certain groups harder than others, the poor and those that don't have resources.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, the unemployment number is almost 1.3 million Ohioans have filed for unemployment since this all began. And of course, that means the state has lost hundreds of millions of dollars in state tax money during the shutdown. That means budget cuts. Governor DeWine is cutting the current fiscal year's budget by $775 million. Education and Medicaid will see the biggest impact. K through 12 will see about a $300 million decrease. Every school district will see a cut. Higher education will lose $110 million. But officials say an increase in federal funding will help offset the $210 million cut to Medicaid. So folks who are enrolled in Medicaid will not lose coverage. Now, of course, the state is sitting on nearly $3 billion. It is called the Rainy Day Fund, but for now, Governor DeWine is not going to touch it.
I have said that it's raining, but we really do not want to tap into that fund yet. This rain is not a passing spring shower. It could be, we don't really know, but could be a long, cold, lingering storm.
Jeremy Pelzer, Rainy Day Fund is made for this type of emergency. It's why it's there. I think we were a little surprised that the governor didn't touch it at all to satisfy the budget deficit in this fiscal year.
The governor's been saying for weeks that it's raining. And so people are rightfully asking, well, if it's raining, why aren't you tapping into the rainy day fund? And the governor's answer has been, well, we're not sure how long it's going to be raining. If it's a little sprinkle or a quick shower, or if this is going to be a really long rainstorm. So keep in mind, these cuts are only until the end of the fiscal year, which is less than 2 months away. After that, you have a whole new budget cycle starting. So the governor's saying, well, we want to make sure we have this on tap for next year and the year after that, in case this really becomes a long, pronounced thing. On the other hand, the argument can be made, well, we don't know if it's raining then, but we know it's raining now, so why not use it?
Yeah, I mean, Julie, he must have projections that show that fiscal 2021 is going to be even worse, and he must think that we can survive these cuts without huge reductions in services or layoffs, but 2021 is going to be terrible.
I suspect that. And I also was thinking that, in some ways, because government is working in a pared down manner, with the exception of, he did not cut the prisons and obviously vital services, things, the response to COVID itself has been protected. But I think you're looking at, well, there's perhaps less to do, or not at the unemployment office, but maybe this is a better time to endure those cuts. We already are holding off on hiring and contracts, and a lot of fewer people are at work, so maybe it'll be less felt now than later.
And keep in mind too that you can only cut certain parts of the budget. A lot of things like state prisons, a lot of Medicaid and these social services, they're kind of entrenched. There's only a portion of a percentage of the budget that's even eligible to cut, and so you're kind of limited in that way.
Yeah, and I think the federal funding for Medicaid certainly made it a little easier to withstand this small 2-month section. If you had to cut for Medicaid, and having people lose their coverage during a pandemic just doesn't make any sense. The House is not really involved in this. Lawmakers in the House and Senate aren't really involved in this, because I know Larry Householder had said that he would like to see the state dip into the rainy day fund. He mentioned it this week that maybe the state should dip into the rainy day fund for sort of poor school districts who can't really withstand this cut that's coming. The lawmakers, it's the governor that decides who spends the money now, right?
Right. He is operating under a statewide emergency, and he's invoking, an awful lot of his executive powers at the moment, and they don't have time to rewrite an entire budget, and he can make these cuts as needed, I guess. It's interesting, speaking of the rainy day debate, that Ted Strickland, when he took the rainy day fund down to 89 cents during the Great Recession, he was eviscerated for that politically. And, it kind of ruined his chance to win a US Senate seat that he was running for. And, I mean, I think Mike DeWine, probably could ride out his current popularity over his handling of this. But, that has to be in the back of anybody's mind when you're dealing with rainy day funds.
But the rainy day fund is there for just this kind of an occasion. I know John Kasich made, a huge deal out of it, that he was left with 89 cents and he left with 2.7 billion, but he was under good economic times, and he used the rainy day fund during bad economic times. Jeremy, I'm guessing lawmakers would like to see the John Kasich mid-biennium budget that they loathed all those years. They'd like to see that come back probably right now.
Yeah.
Have a say in this.
Who would have thought? It's suddenly looking pretty good. I mean, part of this, of course, this is nothing new where you have lawmakers and the governor clashing over budget issues. This is kind of a new version of the same song. And yet, if you look at leaders like Larry Householder, he's been a frequent critic of the governor's coronavirus response. He criticized the governor's handling of the primary election. But on the other hand, you could argue, well, he's sort of been good cop to some other House Republicans bad cop. They've gone much farther than the speaker and really going out against against the governor, calling for immediate reopenings. So Householder's trying to, one, represent his caucus, but then he's also, really walked a tightrope where he's trying to have it both ways.
Yeah. Speaking of that, members of the Ohio House have largely been left out of the COVID-19 decision making. And as Jeremy said, many of them are not happy about it, particularly Republicans who think the shutdown has gone too deep and has lasted too long. So the House this week approved a provision that would scale back the powers of the state director of the Department of Public Health. That's Dr. Amy Acton. It would make it so any state health orders, emergency orders, would only last for 14 days. And then it would go back to the legislature to have a legislative panel approve whether they should be extended past those 14 days. The provision faces an uncertain future in the state Senate and a certain veto from the governor.
We are in the middle of an emergency now, an emergency that we have not faced for 102 years. So under this bill, if it ever became law, it would be nothing but chaos.
Julie Carr Smythe, this really is just it's a struggle for power. Lawmakers are hearing from their constituents that the state should reopen. Governor is hearing from his public health director and scientists saying we need to keep things shut down. And lawmakers want to say, but in times of emergency, the governors say, no, sorry, I got this.
Right. Yeah, there was a really strong struggle down there this week because the House is probably the most sensitive to the protesters. They have smaller districts. They're in more conservative areas of the state. A lot of them are fighting these elections. Meanwhile, I mean, really, Amy Acton has fought for some things a little bit more stringent than what the governor has ultimately done. When we asked her this week about is she going to be going back to a restaurant anytime soon, she kind of dodged that question.
No, she didn't kind of dodge it. They didn't answer it. Neither she nor Governor DeWine answered that. She's too busy, and Governor DeWine leaves all those decisions up to his wife, Fran.
Right. Right. And so they're obviously, they're all wearing their masks when they come into the briefings, whereas the House Republicans did not, for the most part, wear masks at the legislative session. It's a real clash of, rhetoric in terms of what's right for the state. But the governor had said, it's a 102-year-old law. And the interesting irony that he pointed out is that should he issue an order to reopen, that would only be good for 14 days under this bill. And so that would also have to be reviewed by the legislature and wouldn't stand forever. So
Challenges, it would be chaos.
Yeah.
Jeremy, the current law allows for the legislature to rescind these orders, but they need a supermajority to do it. And even though it won big on this week, this provision, they don't have the supermajority to just end the order themselves.
Well, if they did, they would have. That's what they would have passed, and so it's clear that they're just trying to move to just change the law itself. But of course, you also need a supermajority to override a veto. So it becomes, even if the Senate blocks that or the House can't get the supermajority, you're just making a political statement. You're making your statements known, and the House has passed a number of things that they know wouldn't pass, but they just want to make sure that they're on the record knowing what they want and what they want to see happen.
So this is also just because they're getting calls from their constituents, and this is say, look, we tried to rein in the governor. We did all we could, but he didn't go along with it, so he can avoid some responsibility there. It seems
Right,
to be
and it's interesting.
Go ahead, Julie.
It's interesting that, the governor has chosen to have Amy Acton make these directives as opposed to these being his directives. And some of that I think is necessary because this is health related, but it also puts a real target on her because she issued everything from the stay-at-home order to the one that slowed down the election, the primary election, and other things related to that.
Well, if you look at state law, though, state law, she is the only one who has the power to do this. It says in state law that the Ohio Department of Health can make these standing orders and provisions to prevent infectious diseases. So the governor really doesn't have the power under the law to do it. But what he is doing is saying, hey, don't mess with Dr. Acton, mess with me, the buck stops with me. So he's trying to give political cover, but at the end of the day, he has to rely on the Department of Health to do these kind of orders.
Yeah, like I joked last week, she's not going rogue here. I think, she's doing what the governor wants. It's in her name, but she works for him. And if she did go rogue, I don't think she'd be in that position for much longer. There seems to be a real divide between rural and urban folks politically on this, certainly between Republican and Democrat on this. I mean, if you look at who was wearing a mask and who was not wearing a mask at the State House this week, Democrats were wearing a mask, and only a few Republicans that I saw were wearing masks.
This is another renewal of urban-rural divide on many issues at the State House.
Julie?
And the minority leader, the Democratic leader, Amelia Sykes, made the point that, the 4 million Ohioans represented by Democrats in the House are tending to be more vulnerable to the virus. They're maybe poorer, more people of color, their districts are more, they're struggling more. And so she was really quite angry in her speech about what she described as disrespect. But again, the protesters have been very vocal, and they're obviously on the other side of this argument, and the Republican majority has them as constituents.
Yeah, and Jeremy, this week there were protests outside of Amy Acton's house. She lives in the Columbus area here, and they were loud. No real reports of any trouble other than they were loud and annoying, probably to folks who lived in that neighborhood. But Mike DeWine said that's out of line. You shouldn't be protesting at the private home of an unelected state official.
Sure, that creates just a powder keg waiting to go off. Whether it's, and at the very least, it's just if you're Amy Acton's neighbor, and it's really unsettling to have your family there, her husband, her kids, and these protesters outside. So I get, don't make this personal. I'm not to, defend those who protested there, but they feel helpless. They're like, okay, what can we do to get our point across here? Okay, well, we went outside the State House, nothing really changed. So we want to make sure that we have some voice. So while it's understandable why they did it, I can't really defend going to her home and demonstrating there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's on a public street. They have every right to do it.
Sure.
The governor was just trying to discourage them from doing that. Anyway, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. Some predictions for the weeks ahead. Julie Carr Smythe, will let you go first.
Well, I mean, I just think that the week that we just came through really foreshadowed a lot of conflict, bringing the state out of this. Obviously, Larry Householder brought the House back to vote on this measure against the governor's health director. Has, as we've just been talking, pushed back on some of the budget issues, and I think it really needs to go smoothly in order for us not to have another surge and not to have more people die. So I think that that'll be the debate to watch.
Jeremy Pelzer, final thought.
I think you're going to have a lot. There's already questions being raised about how the November election is going to be held. If it's going to be in person or it'll be like the primary where it was all mail. And if there are restrictions on in-person voting, I think you're going to have a lot of problems with accurate polling. I heard during the primary, if people are staying home, they might say, oh, I'm going to vote for this person, but then they end up not voting because they didn't mail it in. So I think even more than the past couple elections, it'll be hard to find a pretty good poll if you have an all-mail election in November.
All right, my final thought is today, just wear the mask. It's no big deal. Protect yourself, protect others in your family and your neighbors. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, WOSU.org. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.